Hey guys, okay, so as you know, if you own a Jimny, especially the new model, the JB74s, you know that when you take them off-road, especially in the sand, the traction control keeps kicking in. Even if you turn it off with a little switch on the dash, it still manages to fire in. Like it's about 30-40 kilometers per hour. You're going through the sand, you're getting plenty of momentum, and all of a sudden your traction control just kicks in, kills all your momentum, and it's not very good. Like, we're not too sure why it does this. It just does do this. There is a solution online that you can purchase for about $1,000, which is a little bit steep for my blood, to be honest. But I have another solution which we've been working on, and hopefully it'll give us some good results. It should be pretty simple. So pretty much what we've done is we've isolated the traction control system. It's not isolated in itself. It uses a common fuse that is also used by traction control, the digital camera it has on the front of the vehicle for weather detection, for like rain and whatnot. Also ABS as well is also controlled by the same fuse. So what we're going to do is we're just going to isolate that fuse, and I'm just going to put a switch on it. That way when we go onto the beach and we chuck in a 4-low, I can then switch off the fuse. It will give me a few error lights on the dashboard saying, you know, this system's not working, that system's not working. I've already tested it, and pretty much it just, when you turn the engine on, it flashes up saying it's not working. But other than that, there's a little caution sign on your dash, and that's about it. So the good thing is that I'm happy to tolerate that whilst driving on the beach, because I can then just switch it off, drive on the beach, do what it needs to do, and then when I get back on road again and pump up my tires, that's when I can switch it back on again, and then go back to driving normally. So what we're doing today is, if you just want to come have a look here, this is the fuse box. I've already pulled it apart a little bit, so I've taken the top of it off. I've also gone around the outsides and actually unclipped everything. We figured that this here is the actual fuse here, this one right here, this 40 amp fuse. And I can tell that by if you look underneath the cover. So can you see that? It's this one right here, 40 amp ABS MOT. So it's the second one in, which is this guy right here. So I've actually loosened up all of the clips on the side, and I actually reach underneath. If you actually just sort of bring the camera over this way a little bit, it's this green wire here, this big fat guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut that cable. Yeah, that's right, I hate saying it. I'm going to cut that cable. I'm then going to run a lead into the dash to this little switch here, which is just a basic little toggle switch on and off. And then from there, it's going to come straight back to that green wire. So the idea is that all I can do is flick the switch and then cut that cable, which means I'll just disengage that fuse, which means we'll disengage all of those electronic control systems. Okay, so pretty much what we're trying to do is what I've done here. So as you can see, it's pretty much just a spade terminal that I've just heat shrinked onto the end of the cable. This is the cable I've got. It's just basic 2-core stuff. I've just got these generic little spade terminals here. I'm just going to rip that blue thing off, put it on there, solder it together, and then put a bit of heat shrink on it, and then that way it should be good to go. So here we go. And there we go. We have 2 sealed, soldered, fully waterproofed connections. They can just plug straight on the back of this switch and will never touch each other or short out ever again. Easy peasy. Okay, so I've taken the little 40 amp fuse out, which is just obviously from here. Now the trick is with these ones, there's little tabs on the side here. So you just gotta obviously get a little screwdriver underneath that, and then you just like pry it out, and the whole thing just pops right out. Now, as you can see, there's 2 spades on the inside there. The outside spade has a little terminal, little clip just on the outside here. So I'm going to use myself a very pointy little tool, and I'm going to use that to get it out. So 1 moment. Just put down this fuse so I don't lose it. Okay. So that should just go in the back of this. You should just unclip that cable. There you go. And as you see, just pop right out. So there's a little tab on the inside. I flicked it back, and the whole thing just slides right out and exposes the green blade fuse. So that is what I need to cut, and that is what I need to put the switch into. So then that way I can isolate that fuse. Okay, so as you know, I've already done the insulation shielding stuff on the switch. Just sort of thinking about it a bit more. I'm not 100% sure if this is going to work or not. So what I've done is I've just sort of temporarily connected a blade and a female blade, I guess. There's a word for it, but I don't know what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just sort of bypass the cable that's already there, just so I'm not actually cutting into the car itself and damaging it. Because if this doesn't work, then obviously we're back to square one. So yeah, so what I'm going to do pretty much is like this little green blade here. That's the one that came out of the back of the fuse, so I'm just going to plug that straight into here. It's obviously going to go to the switch, and then come back out of the switch, and then go to this blade, which I'm going to jam back in the inside of the back of this, and then put the fuse back in. That way, if I want to disconnect the fuse, I just hit this, it literally cuts the cable, and then that way it should stop it from working. And then when I want it back working again, I switch it back on, and then it should allow it to work. Okay, so I've temporarily wired up the switch. Everything is all nice and connected. It's obviously not going to be sitting out the window. I'm going to just tuck it under the bonnet for now. But the thing is, just to show you what I'm talking about, when you turn the car on, obviously everything works. The computer goes through all of the systems, and it, does its thing as cars do. So if I hit this switch, so for example, I'm jumping on the beach, I'm going to low range, and then all of a sudden I'm driving along and my traction control kicks in. Now, you could turn off the traction control on the dash, but as you all know, if you go over faster than 40 kilometers per hour, the traction control just kicks in again anyway. So if I do this, boom, all of my systems fail because I've actually disengaged the fuse. So what that means is that now, like, it'll ping 3 times, it'll give me a bunch of warnings, but it should revert back to pretty much a standard display. There's obviously going to be a few extra warning lights in there saying that my traction control, my ESP and all that are turned off, but that's because I've just killed it. So the one downside is, though, that if I turn it back on, the computer needs to be restarted. So I have to turn the car off and turn the car back on again, like this, in order to reset the computer. So that's not a huge loss for me, because every time you get off the beach you stop and re-air your tires anyway, and because I've got my solenoid and stuff at the front, and I'm going to have an air compressor under the bonnet, I'm going to be under there anyway, switching on and off. So to me, hopefully this should work. I'm now going to go to the beach and test it. Hey guys, so it's the next day. I'm at the beach. As you can see, it's actually high tide, which is good for us because it means there's nothing but really soft sand. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the traction control on by holding it down for a couple of seconds. There you go. So now, well, sorry, the traction control's turned off. So now technically it should stay off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the soft sand over here and then give it a bit of a blast and see what happens. Alright, so turning traction control off. As you see, oh, just turn back on again. So turning it off. So as you see, it's off, the light's off, the warning sign saying it's off. As soon as I go past 30 kilometers per hour, it just kicks back in again. Which means that if I now go into the soft stuff, it's actually going to kick in. which is really, really annoying because if you watch this, see, there you go, that's it there. I don't know if you heard that, but as soon as your wheel starts spinning in the soft sand, the traction control kicks in, and the way the traction control works in the Jimnys is it actually applies the brakes, which is really, really not good because you lose all your momentum, you lose your power, and it's not what you want in soft sand. It makes it really, really hard to drive. Alrighty, so we've just pulled up and stopped here for a second. I've just popped the bonnet, and I'm just going to flick the switch. 2 seconds, there we go. Here's a little switch that I've put in. There you go, flick that, and then that way it should shut everything off, and from here on in I'll be driving across the beach and we can see how it performs after this. So there we go. Right, so back in the car, I've just started up again. As you can see, all my warning lights are on, which is expected because I've literally disconnected the ABS, the hill hold control, you know, the ESP, the traction control, the whole lot. All runs off the same fuse, so this is normal. Thankfully, there's no beeping noises or anything like that, so I can just drive down the beach, ignoring the fact that all my alarms are on. But it's normal. If I switch the switch back on, and then I have to restart the computer for them to auto clear, but other than that, it seems to be working fine. So let's go. Okay, so now I am driving through the real soft stuff, heading back home. As you can see, it's very jittery and very bumpy because I am trying to give it as much as I can. I'm currently cranking just over 30 kilometers per hour, which means that the traction control should be kicking in, but it is not. So I do have a lot of warning lights on my dash, obviously saying my ESP is not working and my crash system's not working, and everything else. But yeah, it's at the point where everything seems to be functioning, like physically. It's just the electronics that have started to, obviously throw up its warning signs. But whilst you're on the beach, I'm not going to be using these systems anyway, so it's fine in my book. There's a little bit of a quirk. I have noticed that my handbrake light has come on, which is my emergency brake, which is a bit weird because it's definitely off. I did play with it a little bit to make sure that it wasn't stuck or something, but it just definitely seems to come on. But saying that, it's obviously not on, so it seems to be working. As long as you ignore the warnings coming up on the dash, then yeah, it's actually, everything works the way it's supposed to. So I'm at this point, I'm actually quite happy with this model. Alrighty, now that's all done, we've pumped up all the tyres and we're ready to go. If you'd just like to poke your head in the corner here to see if we've finally figured it all out. So drum roll please. So there you have it, no warning lights, no issues, no errors, everything's all reset. Turn the handbrake off to make sure the handbrake light comes off because, that's came on before. Yeah, it seems to be working perfectly. So everything seems to be back to normal. Everything seems to be working the way that we wanted it to work. Saying that though, I wouldn't recommend doing this to your car if you don't know what to do. We are literally hacking the electronics as much as we can. We're shutting down systems that are supposed to be working. And yeah, so you definitely be voiding warranty doing this. So just, as I said, it definitely works. It fixes the issue with the traction control kicking in. Hopefully there will be some cheaper options online that come through. There is a few at the moment that are pretty expensive, and if honestly, I don't think it's justified that they're that expensive. There is obviously cheap workarounds, but they are definitely workarounds. They're not an actual fix. How much did I spend on this whole setup? Not including the tools and stuff, $6 for a plug. That was about it. Oh, sorry, for a switch. I mean, if you were going to do this from scratch, like you had zero tools, and you're like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy everything I need to do this whole project, you're looking at about $100 in all seriousness. So there is a few systems out there. I have seen one online for about $1,000, which to me is just ridiculous. It is way too expensive to do what it does. So saying that, once again, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And once again, yeah, please follow us on Insta, please follow us on YouTube, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.